What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be reviewing the Gundam Expo Limited Edition Real Grade Exia. Before we dive into the details of this kit, let's go over the basics. So this kit is the G-Expo Limited Real Grade Exia version Extra Finish. So the scale of this RG is 1/144, typical for your RG line. Now, the Bandai website shows this at $58 US, and I purchased this at the Expo for $58, so the price is the same. What I found interesting was that this is a pre-order item, and if you go to their website, you see that it says pre-order start November 22nd, I think, so one of the days of the Expo. But the delivery month is January 2023. So at the time of this video dropping, hopefully, the RG will be shipped out to those who pre-ordered it. So moving on to building. So when I was building, the pieces are small. Let me start off with that. The pieces were tiny, and the pieces were a little hard for me to put together. Now, I have a little bit thicker fingers, so when it came to certain areas where I had to finesse it together, I say finesse because I had to use the tweezers, the needle nose and the regular one, to try to get some of these pieces in. And some of the notable ones were, for example, down here in the hip area, you have this V shape coming out this front part, and this V shape has these gray zones. I'm not sure if it's very clear because of the light, but it has these gray zones right here. I want to call them the square rectangles or squares, right? The way that gets put in is you have to insert that into the V part, or better yet, insert the gray into the middle zone, and then try to get the V part. It's got like this this interlocking system, so you have to wiggle it in there and then like pull it at the right location so that the gray part locks into the V part, and getting the gray part in there was a bit tough. So that one was a tough one. The other tough part were these exhaust ports and trying to keep them in. So you'll see these yellow parts right here in the chest region. Those were pretty small, and I had to push them in there and then try to keep them in there as I put the unit together. The other notable situation was, just gonna rotate this guy here. So the other tiny situation that I want to call out is this right here. So this right arm, I left this out on purpose. So this right arm, if the camera can focus to it, this right arm right here, come on camera. Yeah, it's right here. See this strip, this ribbon? So this ribbon, I had a mistake happen with this, and it was probably my negligence, but I feel like the kit could have made it a little bit less confusing. I want to say that the nip, the runner, and the nub was like connected right here at this edge. So what happened was, after I cut it off the runner, I went to clean up the edges, and there's this little bit that's supposed to stick out. Let me see if this camera can help me out. There's a little bit that's supposed to stick out right here on the arm. Perfect. Okay, kind of. Right here. Right here. There's an arm part that this ribbon is supposed to connect to right here. And I snipped that part. Oops. I snipped that part because I thought that it was part of the excess. And so when it came to put the guy together, you can kind of see it on this side of the arm. right there. There's supposed to be a piece that the ribbon connects to. Right there. That ribbon connects to that piece. And I couldn't put that piece on, even though I had plastic glue. I couldn't put that piece back on. And it wasn't staying there or anything. So, that was an error on my part. Yes, absolutely. But it was an error nonetheless. In fact, in a Discord channel that I'm a part of other Gunpla lovers, I was complaining about this one particular issue and the excess issue, and someone also cut this. So apparently it's a common occurrence, and I think that that's because of the confusion of realizing that that is a part that we need before cutting. So I'm not going to tack that as a complaint to the makers, but I will say this to those who are watching. If you're building this unit, be very careful not to nip that arm piece off. So double check when you get to the arms that you're not going to cut off a piece that you're ultimately going to need later. Another thing that happened as a user error on my part, I cut a couple of pieces of the tiny connector pieces, and they flew off. Now I typically have a technique where I put my index finger and my thumb on it, or my middle finger and my thumb. I keep it still while I'm cutting it, so that I can keep it still. And the one time I didn't do it, the piece flew off. So there were a couple of pieces that I lost, notably on the hip area and the arm piece that the shoulder guard piece that I broke off, or I snipped. Some of the exhaust ports were pretty tough too, and can't exactly find the location, but some of this was a little tough. I felt like the unit scale made it pretty hard. You can kind of see my finger in version of scale. Like, imagine trying to put some of the smaller pieces in there, and then using the tweezers. They helped for sure, but they also, when you're trying to push it in there, you're not trying to damage the molding of it by pressing too hard and things like that. So I would just be cautious. The unit does have small pieces, but overall the building went fine. I thought it was pretty straightforward, a little seamless. Just make sure you're following the directions. I remember having to take apart a couple of I think it was the leg and the arm, because I put the ball socket wrong. So when I snapped everything together, I was like, oh, I have two left arms. And it was simply because of the socket positioning was on the other side. One thing that I have as a complaint about this is, and this is interesting because a lot of master grades, I don't have this problem. I can't recall if I had this problem with high grades, but something that stood out to me was the fact that when I took the pieces out of the runner, once I cut it out and I cleaned up the excess from the runner, I still had extra to deal with. So, for example, this molded piece, this one in particular didn't have it, but I had a piece that I noticed that on the edge, like over here on the edge, so this is a rounded piece, on the edge over here, this piece had extra plastic, like really thin extra plastic that you get from the molding or from the fabrication of it. So I had to either take a nipper or a razor, an X-Acto knife, and I had to clean up that edge so that the excess printed or the molded of the plastic wouldn't interfere with it or show up. So that happened to me a few times. I'd like to say maybe 2 or 3 times. And I thought that was interesting because after so many years of like building these kits, I've never really noticed that on my master grades, which I exclusively build. I started doing more recently the SD Gundams, and I've done maybe a couple of high grades, but I typically stick to master grade. So the one thing that really stood out to me was the excess runner, like the plastic on the piece itself that I had to clean up. And that kind of, how do I put this? I don't want to say it ruined the experience. I want to say that it kind of made the experience a little disappointing. I guess that's the best way I would put it. So, you know, typically with your master grades, you get a finer detail, finer cut. I know the real grades are supposed to be the balance between that, but I found that kind of disappointing because, you know, I paid, I don't know, what was it, like $50 or $60 for this kit, and when it comes down to it, I'm supposed to be getting master grade quality with like high grade ease and things like that. But I felt like I would rather save up, and let's say, you know, you're a kid with an allowance, I'd rather wait an extra 2 weeks, save up the extra $40 or 20, 15, 30, whatever it is, and I would get myself just a master grade. This kit overall was a little underwhelming, but that was a big one for me. The one thing that did stand out to me that I liked, that I was getting excited for when I was building this, was the color scheme. So when you look at the runners, you've got your nice, what looks like a metallic finish on the silver. The blue isn't a plasticky blue. It looks like it has a shine to it, so it's like a semi-gloss blue. Looks really nice. And the weapons, the the runner with the weapons and the shield, those were really nice. That had a high gloss metallic finish to it. You can kind of see it here. You can see the high metallic finish, high gloss metallic finish, excuse me. That was really cool because it got me excited, like, oh, this unit is gonna stand out. It's gonna have some nice weapons when I pose, reflective material for photos or just catching the light. So the weapons look really, really nice. The colors pop. I like the blue, I like the silver. The gray's a little dull. The red looks nice. It's a darker tinge red from what I like to say is the usual plasticky red. So the color schemes, they look nice. It looks good. It looks a little bit more high quality. Actually, this does look a little similar to the RX-78, the silver tinge. Not as metallic-y, so this is like a semi-gloss, I want to say, rather than like a higher gloss. But it looks nice. I like it. Moving on to articulation. Here I've got the Exia freestanding on the display. However, if you notice, I've got the sword pointed down and it's actually holding it up because I'm not confident in its ability to freestand. I get a lot of issues where the unit tips over forward. The legs don't seem as sturdy. So if I try to pick up this sword here, maybe it'll show you this time, but typically the sword and the shield are so front heavy that it pulls forward. If you look at this unit sideways with me, you'll notice that the chest is kind of back a little bit and the knees look like they're leaning forward. So with the unit kind of pushing back on the upper torso, it's able to sort of hold the posing with the sword and the shield, but even just a little bit more weight forward, you'll notice that it starts tipping. Alright, moving to the arm piece. So the forearm has a clip connected to the shield, and I don't like this because the shield, I feel like it's a little too long for this kit, or at the very least the protrusion isn't far enough, because the tip of this shield right here conflicts with the shoulder blade or the shoulder pad of the unit. You'll notice that I put the shield up, but I can't put it directly vertical because the tip conflicts with the shoulder. Now when you try to move it in the opposite direction, because that piece that's connected on the arm part of the shield, it conflicts with the bicep of the unit. So I can't even get a full horizontal pose with the shield either. You'll notice here with the little arm piece, you can kind of see it's connected here. I'll just point to it. So that bicep is in conflict. So when you try to move the arm up, the connecting piece of the shield will conflict with the bicep, and you're restricted in your movement. To wrap this up, overall, I don't think the RG is as good as the MG Exia. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. The colors are great, the articulation is okay, no way to put it on a frame or a stand, trouble with tipping over, and for $58, you really are only paying for the special coat. I would get the MG Exia unless you really feel the need to collect all the Exia grades. That one I know you can get the light up kit, you can put it on a frame, it's better posability, and it's just higher quality. Thanks for sticking around for this review. Hope you found it useful, and look forward to the next one. See you later, fam.